Welcome everyone to Digital Marketing This Week. This is recording on June 21st, 2014. And again, I've already put in the little chat box here, but if anyone has a question that you want covered on the live Q&A portion, you can go ahead and click on that link just at ssm.tips/question, and we will get to that right after our main content portion of the webinar. So let's talk about how this whole show is put together. So we've got basically this first part, which is what's working, what's not, what's next when it comes to internet marketing or online marketing. And there's going to be links throughout this topic, and we're going to show the links on the slides themselves, but you don't have to worry about writing them down. We just want to obviously let you know where we're sourcing everything. And toward the end of the show, we're going to go ahead and give you a link that has links to everything. So they're all hyperlinked, and it'll be nice and easy and contained at the end of the show for our show notes. Now, some of those links, of course, will be affiliate links if we're covering something that we can be an affiliate for. So something like Optimized Press or things along those lines, you'll see affiliate links for those. So make sure that we are fully disclosing that. We are internet marketers after all. Okay, so let's talk about the second part. The second part is this live Q&A. That is the part, obviously, where you can ask questions that are specific to your situation, that can cover anything that we've covered in this particular show, or it can just cover general topics, and a lot of them tend to, so it doesn't really have to relate to the content we cover today. If you just have questions about internet marketing or online marketing in general, again, even specific to your situation, you can go to this link, the ssm.tips/question, and from there you'll be taken to a form where you can enter in your name, you can enter in the specifics of your particular question, and if you want us to actually take a look at your website to reference that, we can do that as well, and there's a little box there. You can just let us know if you give us the ability to put that live on the show, so we have that permission or not. Otherwise, we'll just assume that the answer is no. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about in what's new, what's working, what's not. Let's talk about marketing experiments. This is actually a great blog, so to check out. And one thing in particular that we thought was pretty fascinating this week was all about optimizing forms. So for those who don't know, our company is paid by a lot of sort of the higher end marketers to go through and optimize their funnels, and so our job is spending a lot of time in Google Analytics and a lot of time in programs like Visual Website Optimizer, doing a lot of split testing, and always coming up with ways to make things work a little bit better so that they don't necessarily have to put a ton more money into traffic or to improving their traffic, but they put that effort into the traffic that's coming to the page. How do we get more out of it? How do we squeeze more juice? And so this was kind of a fascinating article that I wanted to share because it talks about how to improve an opt-in form. Now, from this form right now, this is the form that they're actually working to improve. There's already some things that, just from my standpoint, I would look at and say, okay, well, here's some things you should take a look at. Okay, and these are what they call in the conversions world, they call them these heuristic rules, which are basically the general rules. So the first thing is there's a lot of fields here. Now, everyone knows or has heard that the fewer fields you have, the better. So there's a lot of fields here, and maybe this would be something you could break up into a 2 or 3 step process so that you can kind of get momentum built, and it's easier for somebody to give an email, and then maybe the first and last name, and then maybe the address information, that sort of stuff. You also have on this particular form multiple places to navigate. So you've got the top nav bar, and they also put a little side nav bar, so you can click around to different areas. And that basically is a distraction element. So it gives somebody an element to do something else other than fill out the form, and that would theoretically hurt conversions on this page. The other thing that isn't as apparent but is there is at the very, very bottom, there's actually 3 different things you can do that are kind of call to actions, where it's a contact us, you can become a member, and then the other one is custom package information, and click here to learn more about that. And so all of these elements are really distracting from the conversion element, and then there's the kind of default submit button. This is the ugly little gray submit buttons that show up by default with forms. They're really not that hard to change, and you should if you have the option or if you know how to do them, because they're just, again, it's submit. It's an oppressive term. Nobody likes to submit, right? You don't want to submit to somebody else, but that's what the default buttons are always called, and they just don't work as well when you have them sort of gray and with that particular word. So let's talk about some of the variations that they did on this particular test. Now, the first one is fascinating. And so what they did is, obviously, we took care of that button. So now, instead of submit with a little ugly gray button, they put in there, get in touch with me. Okay, so this is from that mindset of the customer, get in touch with me. That's what they want. They want somebody to get in touch with me. That's what this whole thing is for a lead generation form. They also added this little testimonial element. Okay, so now you've got a proof that somebody else is saying how great this company is, how great this information was, how great the experience was. It's reinforcing the decision. It's kind of relying upon peers. And so this is an important lesson, because if you have the opportunity to add a review or a testimonial about your service right around the opt-in page, because people are thinking, do I trust this person? Is this information that I'm about to give even if it's just a name and email, is this information that I'm giving a name and email about, is it going to be worthwhile? Is it something that I'm going to like? Is it something that is going to waste my time? And so anything that you can do that is in terms of a review or a testimonial that can sort of help be that little angel on the shoulder type of thing where it says, hey, you know what, this is totally cool, I liked it, you're going to have a great experience. That helps. Next, and this is the fascinating part, they added fields. So instead of going, and I'm going to backtrack here just a little bit so you can see here, I think it's around 10 different fields that they have in that middle box. Okay, so right in here you got about 10 different fields. And then what they did on this variation is they added all these fields, and I think they went to something like 15, 19 different fields. There's a lot of different fields in there. So they actually are asking for more information. Now they created another variation, so this is a three-way split test. They created another variation. This one has about the same number of fields. It's just a little shorter, doesn't have the testimonial, but it does include the button. So our little get in touch with me button. So let's take a look. So there's all three kind of laid out. You've got this sort of generic content form that, you know, pretty quick to create, and somebody probably just did it years ago and just never thought about it. You've got the middle variation, this is what we call the treatment A, and that is the treatment that has actually a lot more form fields, which is just an interesting take. They have the testimonial and the review on it, so you've got some peer, some social pressure kind of saying, yes, this is a good product, and you've got the get in touch with me button. And the other one goes the opposite route, which is, okay, let's just shorten up the look of this and remove the distractions. So they don't have the different nav bars, they don't have the call to actions, they don't have the review, but they really just sort of kept it short, sweet, to the point. So figuring that, okay, let's just go ahead and focus on keeping them focused on the page, and will that help us on our lead gen? And I'm going to give just a second. Think about which one would be the winner, okay? If you said treatment A, you're right. So this treatment A, this is what's fascinating about it. So look into this form. What was interesting about it, and this I didn't cover, so it was kind of a setup, I apologize, but what was interesting about this form is this was the only form that had conversational elements. And what I mean by that is when there was a heading. So the form, even though it had more fields, and this is what is the coolest part about this test, this is the best takeaway from this test. Most of the time, if you talk to anybody in conversions and you say, hey, if I add fields, what will happen? They're going to tell you, well, most of the time your conversions are going to go down. And this test proves that is not necessarily true. In fact, conversions went up on this test. They were up higher than they were on even the variation on that third treatment, on the shorter version. So the conversions were higher here. And because there was more fields, they actually had better quality leads. Now, for those of you kind of wondering, okay, what about required fields, optional fields? In this particular test, they actually had 100% of the people filling out every single field. So not only did they fill out the required fields, they actually filled out the optional fields as well. So their quality of data, and think about this from a lead generation standpoint, the quality of data, because you know that many more people, or you know that much more information about the lead coming in, you can actually cater the sales process to them. You can cater your languaging to them. You can cater, if you're doing an autoresponder, you can cater, tag them in a certain way so that your autoresponder is adjusting and speaking directly to that segment. I mean, it is fascinating. But what they did is they said, okay, so we're going to split this up into sections, and we're going to kind of walk through as if they were talking to somebody, right? So this page actually has a conversation. And even if you don't have something this complicated, we don't necessarily have something this complicated in our marketing funnel, but we're going to start using these elements because this is a kind of a cool way of taking the page and just having the page have a conversation with somebody in a very conversational tone. So it's like, with whom will we be speaking? And it kind of gives you information. Okay, where are you located? And then it gives information, different fields you can fill out to tell us where they're located. And then it asks you, okay, what information are you interested in discussing during this call? And here's all the different fields for information. So what's happening is the presentation of the questions is what's helping the questions to get answered. And that probably, now definitely testimonial helped, definitely the button helped, definitely the fact that they removed the navigation helped, definitely the fact that they didn't have those little call to actions at the bottom helped. But the other test sort of had that stuff going for it too. This one had the additional fields, which should have hurt it, but because of how they were broken down, and they were broken down into like little mini sections, that's what made it work really well. Now what would really be cool is for them to test this into a multi-step form. So where you're kind of doing, and they did, and I wish they did, because that would be cool to see the data on it, but that would be something I would test next and say, okay, let's just do this first section with whom we're going to be speaking, and it kind of walks you through that process. And then in the next section, then the next section with a little progress bar as they're going through, because that would be cool. But again, they did a great job with this. They actually kept that conversational tone going throughout their entire sales process, and I believe it led to about a 226% increase in their conversions to members, which was fascinating. So the takeaways from this are testimonials. Have any sort of testimonial review, put a little sidebar widget, especially if you're using WordPress, nice and easy to build out. But really, have a conversational tone. Have the page be almost like your representative, because it really is, right? So have it be like your little personal representative, and how would you like to be spoken to as a prospect or as a visitor coming to your website? When you add that conversational tone, you make a connection with the person, they pay a little bit more attention, they stay naturally engaged a whole lot more, and again, you get better results. So that's kind of our first one here. Next, duct tape marketing. This was a great blog post where it was talking about automation, and we get this question a lot. In fact, on the replays, you know, people that can request a replay for this particular show, we have an opportunity for them to ask questions, because we obviously know they're not going to be here live, and so they go through and they ask us questions, and we get asked all the time about automation. How can I automate this, that, or the other thing? What was nice about this blog, it was kind of a summary of what you can automate and how you can automate it, and so we also put into here the different tools that we use to automate the various sections of our business. So the very first step here was automating your leads. Okay, so this is lead capture. This is opt-in forms, squeeze pages, call them what you will. There are a number of ways to do this. Some of the more popular ways are lead pages. And you know, we don't use lead pages, but I know a lot of people that do. They are very, very easy to set up. You don't have to have your own website. You can just use lead pages. Everything's hosted. It's pretty much drag and drop simplicity. And I know a lot of people that use those, and they use them very, very successfully. You know, people make a ton of money off of them, and they have built-in split testing. There's a whole lot of things that go well with lead pages. There is also a company called Unbounce that you can check into. Between the two, we would probably gear for lead pages, just because Unbounce I don't think has evolved as much. Lead pages, I believe, are responsive, which means that they respond to mobile sites, and Unbounce, as I believe, as of this point, as of this recording, Unbounce pages they know they need to be responsive, but they haven't made them responsive yet. So they're not as strong on perhaps what a mobile interface would be if you're doing like a Facebook ad campaign or something like that. You might want to use lead pages over Unbounce, but it is an option to check out. And it's the same sort of system. You sign in, you create your page. If you have a WordPress site, they've got little plugins where you can add them. Both lead pages and Unbounce do that. And then there's OptimizePress. Now that's what we use. We use OptimizePress, and one of the things that we like about OptimizePress is its flexibility, because you can do just about anything that you want in OptimizePress, including those little two-step forms, where that's something where you click on a button that says, yes, let's get started, and then it pops up maybe an opt-in form, something along those lines. So again, OptimizePress is pretty good for that, and you can duplicate just about anything else that Lead Pages or Unbounce does. The difference is, of course, it is a theme, costs a bit of money. Actually, all these services cost a little bit of money, but it is something where you'd have to have a WordPress site to use that. Okay, so let's talk about the next step to automation. Email. Email, there's a lot of these things out there. Constant Contact, iContact, you can just Google email automation, but if you're not doing this yet, you should, because it takes away so much of the day-to-day sort of numbingness that can happen if you have to handle this all on your own, especially when it comes to autoresponders. You know, letting people know about your content or about your sales or about just if you're dripping out content, things like that. I'll put them in an autoresponder, and whenever everybody signs up for your list, they just sort of go through the process. On day 1, they get this email. On day 3, they get this email. 7 days later, they get this email. It's a nice automated thing that you don't really have to worry about. So services like Aweber, which is actually how we started way back in the day. You've got MailChimp. Now, MailChimp is great because you can get started for free, but and this I guess we haven't used MailChimp. I know a lot of we do have people that do use MailChimp. The only thing I've ever heard about MailChimp was that they don't like affiliate links. So that could be an issue, obviously, right? Especially if you're doing affiliate marketing. And from MailChimp's perspective, they actually did a blog post on this not too long ago. From MailChimp's perspective, they're saying, no, we don't mind affiliate links. You can use this for affiliate marketing. Just don't use this for the spammy sort of blacklisted sites. So if you send to an affiliate offer whose site is blacklisted, then MailChimp will harm you because and it's not anything against you. They're just trying to protect themselves. Okay, and then the third one, Infusionsoft. Now, Infusionsoft, also Ontraport, which is also out there, used to be called Office Autopilot. These are, they do email, but they do a lot more. They do shopping carts. They do a CRM, which is collecting all of the data, name, address, phone number, tags. It does a lot more stuff. It's a lot more integrated, but it's a lot more money. So you're spending hundreds of bucks a month on Infusionsoft, whereas with MailChimp, it could cost you nothing up to a certain point. And then with Aweber, 10, 20 bucks a month. So it's kind of wherever your budget is, but definitely something, if you are not already doing it, to take a look at. Next, let's talk about social. So social media, how do you automate that? And there's a lot of other things that we haven't put on here, things like Hootsuite, where you can do some automation. But the three big ones that people sort of skip, actually two big ones that people skip, and then one that we use, which is Buffer at the bottom there. Buffer is actually really, really good for this. But if this, then that, which is the IFTTT, and it's at ifttt.com. We'll put that in the show notes as well. But what if this, then that does is actually allow you to connect various portions of various systems together to completely automate something. So you could do something like, when a blog post is published, then tweet out this. You could do, when I receive an email about, new special sale, text my phone. I mean, you can do all sorts of things with if this, then that. And with Zapier, it's the same way. So Zapier connects the what they call the APIs, which are just internal components of these different systems together, and does sort of the same thing, where you could say, okay, well, when somebody fills out my form, then do this, or when I do a blog post, automatically publish it to this. Buffer is what we prefer. Buffer is an app that'll go through and then drip out content, so we can say, hey, in the morning we can spend maybe 20, 30 minutes going through the blog posts or podcast or whatever it is that we like, and we'll load them into Buffer, and then Buffer will actually drip them out throughout the day based on how we schedule them. And you can adjust that for all the different social networks. So we can say on Facebook, do this 10 times a day, and on Twitter, do 20 times a day. Or maybe like Facebook would be like 3 or 4. Let's do it more realistic. So Facebook would be 3 or 4. Twitter might be 10 or 15 because Twitter just has a shorter shelf life. And then Google Plus might be 2 times a day where we'll do something. But all that is customized within Buffer. Now, the only thing I would say on this is that technically, and you sort of have to look at this from the viewpoint of a social network. Technically, when you use these apps, they will, in some way, shape, or form, not be as effective as you physically going in or you having somebody else physically go in and post these. So I guess the fourth one we could add here is an outsourcer, where you have somebody that goes in and actually posts them. Maybe as your page, they log in and they can post the blog post, because that will get more engagement because it's seen as somebody actually doing something. So it's got a higher rank. It's actually showing more people's feeds. Regardless of the social network, it just has a higher quality score. So it makes more sense to do it, if you can, to do it from an outsourcing perspective. Or if you don't, just because the budget's not there, using a simple tool like this will at least get you from point A to point B to where you can hire somebody. Next is service. Now we're talking about customer service here. And there's 3 different things that we can recommend. One is actually 3 different things that were recommended on the actual blog post itself, and then the one that we have, which is OS Ticket that we use. But canned responses, let me show you what canned responses are. Let me drag this in here. Canned responses, this is inside of our Gmail account. Now this is something that is specific to Gmail. So canned responses, you actually have to enable. And the way to do that is you'll go into your Gmail, go up to where the little gearbox is, click on settings, and then you're going to go to something called labs. So again, this is built into Gmail, but it isn't something that's automatically enabled. Just type in the word canned, and then you'll see canned responses pop up. And all you have to do is just click enable those, and then you can save those changes. And then what will happen is you will go through, and whenever you go to compose something, you can do canned responses. So, or when you reply to a message, you can do canned responses. And essentially what that is where you can type in, if for example, somebody's asking you, maybe you've got a membership site and somebody lost a password, you can set up a canned response that says, thanks for contacting us about your lost password. You can easily reset your password by doing blah, 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 blah. And it's kind of the same answer you say over and over and over again. That's what a canned response is. That's all it is. And it is a part that's built into Gmail. So worth definitely taking a look at. Zendesk is a customer service platform that is pretty decent at pricing agreements with them. So it is something that will cost you a little bit of money, but it's highly customizable. It connects with just about every system out there. If you're using other systems like Infusionsoft or whatever you're using, it pretty much connects with just about everything out there. And it keeps everything in one place. So that's the best part about using some sort of customer service portal. It's because everything's in one spot. There's a help desk where you or other people, as you add them to your team, can go in, can adjust tickets. It's also a really cool way to keep track of everything, so you can see if is a similar issue coming in over and over again, or if there's a feature request, you can say, okay, great, I'm going to keep this in the feature request section, and everything's sort of contained. So that's Zendesk. We use something called OS Ticket because it integrates with our membership software, which we use Digital Access Pass for. And Digital Access Pass and OS Ticket have this little integration called DAP Ticket that uses OS Ticket, which is open source. Actually, it's completely free. The program on its own is completely free. But we pay for a little add-on called DAP Ticket that integrates everything. So when somebody is logged in as a member, they can then click on support. It'll automatically flood in their email address and log them into the support system. So you may have noticed sometimes some systems where you sign up for something and you buy it and it's great, and then when you give support, you've got to sign in again for support or create a whole new separate support login. And they're not integrated. And sometimes you do have that problem, like with Zendesk, where it may not be integrated. It's not that big of a deal. It's just something else that somebody has to keep track of. But for us, we wanted to have it all sort of contained in one space, especially because when it comes to membership sites, people will often use different emails for different things. So you've got a membership site, maybe they signed up with one email, and then when they do a customer support ticket, they use a different email, and now you can't find that person because if they maybe if the names don't match for whatever reason, the emails are completely different and you have no idea how to look up the customer record. So from our perspective, it was a lot better to use something like OS Ticket that integrated everything so that we could, again, have the benefits of a help desk system where everything's in one spot, everything's automated. We also have the ability to do things like canned responses within that system. Zendesk is the same way. But you can go through, set all that up, and again, it automates customer service, so you don't have to worry about it. So we have myself and then members of our team will go in there multiple times a day, taking a look at whatever the latest tickets are and helping to process those. Okay, so next, analytics. If you're not doing analytics, please put analytics on your site. I have talked to people who, I kid you not, have had $100,000 a month businesses online, and when I ask them about their analytics, they're not even using it. It's amazing. Analytics is free, so Google Analytics, these actually both are free. Google Analytics and Clicky, we actually use them both because it's always good to get a different view. Analytics in general, any sort of tracking software in general, every single piece of tracking software you use will give you a slightly different view of the data. They will never match because they all work differently. They will never ever match. So it's helpful to have multiple tracking sources in there so you can kind of get an idea. The truth is, as we like to say, the truth is in the middle. It's always in the middle somewhere. Nobody's got a perfect view of the truth. It's always in the middle between the 2 or 3 or 10 different data sources you're looking at. So with Google Analytics and Clicky, both are free, both are easy to sign up for, both just require you to put a little bit of tracking code on your page. And if you're using WordPress, which I venture to say most of you probably are, when you're using WordPress, you can just put it on one little spot. Probably your theme has a little spot for analytics code, put it on that one spot, publish it, and you're done. Like you save that and it's all across your site, and now you've got this data being tracked. Now, even if you haven't set up your analytics with things like event tracking or goals, you at least have the raw data in there so that when you are ready to go into that next step and really customize your analytics setup, you have the data to look at. If you don't do that, which again, this takes 5 minutes to set up. So if you don't do that, you can never go back. It doesn't retro back. So why not set it up now in the beginning? And if you've sort of been procrastinating, like, oh yeah, one day I'll do that, this part of it, this tracking code part of it, takes 5 minutes. It is not a big deal. You go in there, put in tracking code, very quick to set up, and at least you've got data being collected so that when you're ready to get into the more advanced stages of analytics, then you can actually go through, and again, even if you're never going to look at it, at least have it, because one day you probably will want to, or somebody that you work with will want to, and the data will at least be there. All right, so that's enough about that. We're going to get off the soapbox. Next is Facebook, and we'll go a little bit quicker here because we do try to keep these to about 20 minutes. I know we're running a little bit over. With Facebook, this was an important thing. This was something that was announced back in April, but it's actually happening this week. So you will notice this in your Facebook timeline, especially for those of you, if you're like us, buying Facebook ads. You'll see right here on the right-hand side how the ads kind of look like now. What's going to happen is they're going to start looking like this. Now there are two big differences. One is obviously you've got this bigger picture, this bigger image area. You've got an ability to ask for a little call to action. You'll see a little button, you know, that they have on traditional newsfeed ads where it says like learn more, sign up, like page, stuff like that. And because they're bigger, there's less of them. So what's going to happen here? Think about supply and demand. That means ad prices are going to go up for right-hand read because now you're basically competing for less space and more people are advertising on Facebook every day. So prices more than likely are going to go up. My suggestion is if you are not doing advertising on Facebook yet, you start to play around with it to learn a little bit about it. There are some great courses out there, but it's something that you're probably going to, it's a great source of traffic. And if you do it right, you probably will avoid a lot of this price increase because you basically just segment your audience and you know exactly what works because you're going to do a lot of testing when it comes to ads, and most of which are not going to work. But the ones that do work, you can actually get some pretty cheap clicks. I think even with this change, you'll still be able to do that. My guess is what's going to happen is these right-hand reads, because they're a little bigger, will get a little more notice. They become slightly more effective. And again, if you niche down to your audience, so you're not trying to hit 3 million people at a time, but you might be hitting, you know, the right 50,000 with your message, it can get a little bit cheaper per click. So it's something definitely coming down the pike this week. You should check out your timelines to see when you get it. Finally, ProBlogger gives us these little tips for optimizing your YouTube videos. And again, it's something we get asked a question about quite a bit. So we figured we'd cover it here. So basically 6 different steps they recommend. One is making sure you've got keywords. Now these are pretty basic, but it's important because people do skip them. So putting your keywords in there, making sure that they match whatever the phrase is that you're trying to market for. Your description, very important. Make sure you have a complete description of whatever the video is, including, like in our case, maybe different topics that's being covered, things like that. And the other thing that's important for the description is having a link to a particular blog post if that's what it's about, if you have that opportunity. So if they would need to learn more, they know where to click. Tags, which are part of YouTube, again, if you go into YouTube, and I believe most of the other video systems like Vimeo and all those will also have those. We're going to put in tags. HD quality. So this is high definition quality. So when you're producing your videos, make sure you have them at least 720, if not 1080, so that they're HD. And then transcription. Now this is something we don't do that we probably should, but making a little transcription, you can find people on Odesk or Elance to do transcription for you. Even Fiverr will have some people that can do transcription for you, and then you'll take the transcription, you upload it to the video. That essentially is giving, in this case, Google, if you're using YouTube, gives Google a word-by-word play of what exactly that video is about, so they know how to list it into their rankings. They know more about it, and again, if they know more about it, they're more able to help recommend you to other people. So the more you help them, the more they'll help you. And then finally, promote, which a lot of people don't do, and that's where you just basically send a little email out that says, hey, here's my video, here's what we got, take a look, you know, just publish this. That includes having a decent channel so people can subscribe, even doing things in your video like, you know, asking people to subscribe. Would help with that, especially if you're going to live on YouTube. In our method, our thinking when it comes to anything third party, Facebook, Twitter, Google+, YouTube, Instagram, anything that we're ever going to do, we always look at it like it's rented land. Okay, and there's an old saying that says never build a house on rented land, because at any point that person that owns the land can just kick you off at any time. And so what we try to do is we use these different things that are out there. We're willing to play by the rules with those areas and provide engaging content because we realize there are many different parts of our audience that live in those different areas and that really enjoy spending time there. But our whole point is, hey, if you want to learn more, go back to our site, go back to our site, go back to our site. And we're always trying to get people to go back to SeriouslySimpleMarketing.com because that's where we want them to really start engaging and having content. We want to be able to collect email addresses, build a list. That way, in case for whatever reason something happens with YouTube, then we at least have a list and we can still engage with those people because we're able to collect their information. So always when you promote, make sure that you're ideally promoting to some sort of lead generation form so that you can collect the data and have obviously when it comes to email, that is the most personal form of communication. So you can have really good conversations that way as well. So that does it for our portion of the show with what's working, what's not, and what's next in the world of internet marketing. That's pretty much it. So thanks again for watching. We will see you next week.